if the first question that you're asking yourself is what should I post on social media, that isn't the question you should be asking. It should be, why am I doing this?
Welcome to Avidly Talks. I'm joined by Keira, friend of the agency, connected via Izzy. We are talking to you this week as social media manager at Great Influence, a role you've been in for about 4 months, but you're a social media specialist and you accelerated your career as a young woman working at Girls in Marketing as the head of creative. There's a community of around 300,000 female marketers, all in all. All across the different social channels, and you had a big hand in that, so really pleased to have you on. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago, Girls in Marketing now, but yeah, really good.
4 months ago,
Yeah.
I think. So you were just saying just before we hit record, you've changed jobs, you've gone to agency world, you've
Yeah.
moved into the city centre.
Yeah, I've got basically a whole new life from the start of the year, but all positive change. I feel like I'm very much a person who doesn't do things by half. So like it was like the same week. It was like new job, new apartment, new city. Yeah, so that was that. But yeah, I feel like I'm easing into the changes now, and definitely feels like the 4 months has absolutely flown by, but it also feels like forever at the same time.
I think that's always a good sign. We had
Yeah.
similar with someone in our team, and we were sort of like, oh, you're coming up to probation period. It's like, no, it's only been 2 months. I was like, oh, bloody hell. It feels like
Exactly
you've been
right.
here forever, like already. So,
I think that's the
um,
thing. That's a good sign when you're like, I can't imagine not being here, or like the other end, you can't imagine that person not being there as well. Hopefully, that's what my team think about me, but I won't
um,
speak.
so what are you doing at? Well, who is Great Influence, and what are you doing there?
So, Great Influence is a personal branding agency. So, essentially, we work with like founders and CEOs on their personal brands and helping them build like a personal brand that impacts whatever goal they're kind of trying to achieve. So it looks different for everyone and whatever they're trying to achieve. So for some founders, they might be trying to like build leads for the business. For some founders, they might be trying to build out an exit strategy for their business. So it looks different for everyone. But yeah, essentially what we do is personal brand. So everything from strategy to whatever marketing channel they kind of want to use with the personal brand. So it could be socials, but it could also be looking for podcast opportunities, speaking opportunities, anything like that. So very much work with a variety of clients, and agency life is something that's very much new to me, but yeah, loving it so far. And I think the beauty of the job so far is the range of clients that we do have, and it literally feels like you can literally go into hundreds of different industries like every week. 100 is probably a bit of an over exaggeration, but like loads
Feels
of
like
different industries. Yeah. But honestly, like I think that's the best skill you can get from not even just a personal brand agency, just an agency in general, like tapping into loads of different industries. You learn so much from tapping into them all. So yeah, we work with a very variety of clients.
I remember coming into the agency in my first role as a writer and feeling exactly that. It feels like you're finding out about a little bit about every industry. It's like, but is it different for personal branding? Do you go a bit deeper than just surface
Um,
level?
I think what I didn't realise before working in this role is, and it probably sounds a bit stupid to say now, but personal branding is literally all about people. So it's literally just getting to know people. And I think that's the difference between agency from like a brand side and a personal brand side. It's all about people. So getting to know them, getting to know kind of their attitudes, their behaviours, and trying to predict also what someone would have an opinion on something that's happened in the news, for example. It's very much, yeah, trying to understand kind of the psychology of people as well, which is ideal for me because I studied psychology at A level and absolutely loved it. And that's kind of why I went into marketing as well, because it's like the psychological aspect. Can't even say it. So yeah, a lot of like understanding people, and yeah, just getting to know people as well.
So is that to help make the process smooth for them, so you're already starting on the same page of what they might be thinking about, I don't know,
Yeah,
a new product release in their industry or whatever the big news is?
yeah. I think it's one of two ways. So it's like getting to know the person of like their opinions, like you said, then like what their opinions on a specific thing would be, and to be able to recommend them based on their opinions and what you think they will have kind of maybe objections to. Um, and then it's also thinking from like a personal perspective as well about what someone would want to react to as well, and looking out for them opportunities and letting them know about their opportunities. um, and I think what I've learned is like people, you want as a personal branding agency, you don't want people to like think, oh, like I've got a meeting with the personal branding agency. Like you don't want people to dread the meeting. You want to almost be like a helping hand, like an extension of the brain almost. So it's like an ease. It's not like a chore to speak to the agency. It's kind of like a natural step to talk to the agency through what you're thinking about your personal brand.
I was gonna, is it just founders who sort of prioritise personal brand, or are you seeing other reasons that people do it?
I think right now, so great influence, our main kind of target audience, main clientele is founders, CEOs. But I think right now in the industry, we're seeing like a massive shift in it used to be only for founders and CEOs, and I feel like I built out my personal brand when it was still founders and CEOs, and I've never been founder or CEO in my life. So I think right now we're seeing a shift from founder and CEOs to people also wanting to see employees as well. And we've seen this through employee generated content. And I think this is going to be a massive thing as we kind of head into 2025. Like people want to see from founders and CEOs, but they also now want to see from employees as well. And I think it helps with the kind of trust of a brand as well, because obviously the founder and CEO is naturally going to say all positive things about a brand. And I think as consumers are getting a bit more withdrawn and a bit more concerned over like trust and just kind of being a bit more wary about who they should listen to, I think that's when the employee advocacy really comes in well. And we've seen loads, like I've seen loads of examples of people this year like getting on employee advocacy, and I think that's going to be a key thing for 2025. So
Why,
when I
why is
think
it so important?
I think it's that thing of like employees are an extension. And I saw a stat recently, and it was by, have you heard of the company Wix? I'm guessing so.
Hmm?
They have a really good employee advocacy program, and they were saying the fact that they built out all their program is because for a company or for a founder, you've only got limited reach because it's only one account. So a company account on Wix, I think they have around 190,000 followers. But whereas a collective reach for all their employees who are involved in the employee advocacy program, I think it was like 2.4 million potential reach. So it's like one versus a collective. The reach is just so much higher that you could potentially reach. So I think it's one, the collective versus like a collective versus one, and it's also the second point of like getting that trust and people wanting to hear from a different person than just the founder or CEO as well.
Obviously, um, your social media inside out. Is it is it led by the platforms sort of putting people more to the front, or do you think it's people actually pushing the branded stuff away and not interacting with it? Where do you think that comes from? Because people's accounts always perform better than a company's accounts,
Mhm.
don't they?
Yeah, I think it's a mix, to be honest. I think like that saying "people buy from people" is like
Mm.
obviously massively well known, and I think it's probably the people I would lean more towards to say that people want to see the employees, people want to see the founders, people want to see people from the brand speak on things. And I think there's also an aspect of that recognition. People want to be familiar with someone. So I even had it when I worked at Girls in Marketing, like I was on socials all the time and people like recognised Olivia, the founder, as kind of the founder behind Girls in Marketing, and then I was on socials as well, so I was like the social girl at Girls in Marketing. And I think it's just that familiar aspect that people want, and people want to kind of almost feel like they know the brand and they know the people and they're kind of involved. Like Shea Looks on TikTok are really good at that. Like they're really good at employee advocacy, but also getting people to know the people, and their content is very much like entertainment led. Um, but people really get to know the people behind the brand. And you almost feel like you're in the office with them. I think that's what people want, to kind of feel like they're involved.
Mm. And it's not just for recruitment purposes either.
Hmm.
I think people like to see who they're going to be working with or buying
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, definitely.
What advice have you got for sort of in-house teams or sales people, sales leaders for getting their employee advocacy or employee-generated content program wheels moving?
I think the main tip that I would say is know why you're doing it. So I think it's some businesses will be open and say we want to get more leads, or some businesses will say we want to get more awareness. So I think knowing why you're doing it can then filter down into what employees you get involved, what kind of things you do to get people involved, and like the types of employee advocacy you kind of invest in. And I think as that goal is established, something that is going to have to happen in 2025 is more companies are going to have to like build out employee advocacy guidelines, because we're not seeing a lot of them right now. And I think also if a business is saying we're doing this employee advocacy program because we want to get more leads, I think then it's kind of like employees have to be compensated for that, and
Mm.
we're going to have to see a lot more policies around the rewards that employees get, because it might not always be a monetary reward. It might also be like kind of other stuff, like I don't know, time within your job role.
Karma, not karma, or I don't know the right phrase, but sort of credit in the bank as well, subliminally, isn't it? Of
Hmm.
Kira's always posting about how good it is here. Like we can trust her with this project.
Yeah,
How do you stop that bias creeping in as well? Is part of it, because just because Sam hasn't been posting on social doesn't mean they perhaps.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like sort of one per. It's like being in the office versus remote. If you're in the office, the stats are
hmm,
there, aren't they? That there's a bias towards being invited on meetings
yeah,
or getting different projects. Do you see that happening, or can you envisage that happening to people getting these employee programs running?
yeah, definitely. I think that's the problem. Like, obviously, employee employee advocacy means that you're more visible, but and then it's kind of like obviously not everyone wants to build a personal brand. Like, it's totally down to you whether you do. And I think obviously as more research is coming out that personal branding is like really good for your career, really good for the business that you work for. I think companies are going to have to think about how they do reward the people who do it, because it is worth rewarding people obviously taking the time sometimes outside of the business to create content of the business. But and then I think companies are going to have to work within the guidelines of, like you say, how you don't kind of prevent that bias from creeping in, because I think that's something that could happen, and I think it definitely shouldn't happen, because the more employee advocacy builds, I think we're going to see more employees feel pressured to kind of get involved. And I think, although I think like it's like a massive opportunity, some people don't want to do it, and I don't think just because they work in marketing or just because they work in like advertising, they should have to do it as well. So definitely think that bias is going to have a huge part in company guidelines and policies around it.
I think as well the other fear from like the business point of view is sort of what if they're saying 99% of the time they're saying really good things, but then what about when they, I don't know,
Hmm.
post about the war or the election, and all of a sudden it's associated to your brand, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's why so many business owners or like CEOs are like so hesitant to kind of invest in employee advocacy, or like even to say employees can, because I know I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, my company don't let me post on LinkedIn, or my company would,
Really?
yeah, or
Not even
companies.
not even let you post. I didn't know you could even do that.
Yeah, I don't think you can legally, but I think a lot of companies are a bit clever about how they say it. But I think as well, if even if you're in a company that makes you feel like that as well, like you
Yeah.
can't speak about the business, um, people are going to have to kind of get around that. And yeah, I think companies are very much going to have to think about how they allow people to have the freedom to say what they want, but also to have them guidelines and almost the guardrails of like what they should speak about and what they shouldn't. Because I think a lot of companies will say probably don't speak politically online, but it's like, can you actually say that to employees or not? I think guidelines are going to have to come around that because yeah, I think it's going to look a lot different company to company.
We talked about like when we're hosting events and things. It's funny when you see people who the message at school, you know, when you go on a school trip and they say, remember, you're representing the school today, even though you're not in the uniform.
Yeah.
It's funny in the workplace how you see that message hasn't landed with some people.
Mm. Yeah.
But it boils down to that, doesn't it, I suppose? A bit of trust of, there's
Yeah.
something in it for you as an employee to start posting and be putting yourself out there, as you said. So your journey then from Girls in Marketing, I talked about how rapid it was briefly, but you
Mhm.
what did you join? Did you join a social media exec or manager?
So I joined as a marketing assistant. So I actually, even before that, I was actually a freelancer for Girls in Marketing. So when I was in my first year, I was a freelancer.
What,
And
first
then,
year at uni?
yeah, first year at
Yeah.
uni. I found Girls in Marketing whilst I was in my first year and I found it really helpful. And they had like a job application open. So I applied for it and didn't get it because they needed someone who was more local. And I was gutted. And then for weeks and weeks after that, like I was like, they didn't end up hiring someone. And I was like, there's an opportunity here. So, and then I just kept like commenting on all the posts, like just
Stalked
wouldn't.
them.
Yeah, yeah, basically internet stalked them and just I was just like in the face for ages as much as I could be. And I was in the membership at the time, so I was like on every event, like just trying to be as visible as possible. And again, coming down to that like online presence and like showing up where you can do and being visible. And then yeah, I got offered the opportunity of freelancing, so I did that, and then ended up dropping out of university to go and do a degree apprenticeship with them, and
Right.
then started as marketing assistant. Then I went to marketing, no, social media manager. And then I went to head of creative. So yeah, that was within 2 years, I think it was. So yeah, it was very fast.
And relatively young as well. From I
Mm.
think I saw you post about sort of what, like early 20s.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I think I actually was promoted to head of creative at 21.
But
Which
put that
yeah.
into context as well. So we got, if people aren't familiar with Girls in Marketing, explain what it is.
So Girls in Marketing is a kind of community for marketers to level up their career, basically. So anything from student to kind of mid-level marketer, I'd say. And I worked a lot on the social media um, side of that.
Nice. And like I say, helped, or a big part in helping grow those numbers to 300,000
Yeah.
followers from nowhere near that number. So, um, along the way, you're a great case study of personal brand paying off, and I know people here in the agency who got familiar with Girls in Marketing thanks to being familiar with you on socials.
Mhm.
Um, so that's a case of it going well. What are the common mistakes you see from people when it comes to sort of employee advocacy and personal brand online? What are some of the things to avoid?
Um, I think the main one for me would be kind of chasing those impressions and the reach because it is really easy to do. Because I remember when I like within my first month at Great Influence, Ash, the founder of Great Influence, said something that resonated to me. And he said, just because you're doing well on social media doesn't mean you're doing well with your personal brand. And I was like, that is the perfect way of summing it up because
Go on.
personal brand isn't just social media, it's everything online and offline. And I think just because, yeah, you're getting all these impressions on social media doesn't mean you're actually having a good impact on your personal brand, because it could be something controversial you're posting and that gets an increase of impressions. It could be totally to a different target audience that you want to target, and them impressions are almost useless then. And I also see it as the impressions don't always equal kind of longevity. So with personal brand, you want to build something that's obviously sustainable, but also that will help you in the long term as well. And I think sometimes the impressions and the trying to get reach and trying to get as many followers as you can are kind of a shortcut that's just not going to be helpful in the long term. So I think with personal branding, you've really got to think, why am I doing this? And that answer can change. You can think, for now, or like for the next year, I want to do it for this reason, and then reevaluate that at the end of the year, or even like the next 3 years or whatever. So yeah, I think just because you're doing well on social media doesn't mean you're always doing well with your personal brand. And I think your personal brand, it is kind of, yeah, the sum of like everything you do online, offline. And you always want to make sure the two match up as well, which if you're always going for impressions, people might not always get to know you, because I think a lot of people, and I've experienced it myself, like if I'm sharing a marketing campaign, like when I started out, I didn't realise the extent of like the importance of adding your own personal view to a marketing campaign if you're sharing it. So if you're just sharing saying, this is a campaign by X brand, that adds nothing to you as your personal brand. Like that will get a lot of impressions, it'll get a lot of reach probably if it's a good campaign, but won't always lead back to you. So I've really learnt the importance of, there is a time and a place to share a marketing campaign like that, but it's always worth adding your personal opinion and trying to add some kind of twist, some personal twist on that.
And what sort of things are you tracking then about personal brand and employee personal brand campaigns to be a success? It's not just impressions and short fire success like that. So what kind of softer metrics maybe are you looking at, or metrics generally?
I think that's the really hard thing with personal brand. Like it's, you can't, there's no
Like a
one way
company
to
brand.
track it. Yeah, yeah, because you can't track it to like success. Like if you're tracking it based on impressions, and that is the natural step that you would kind of go to for impressions to track it. But again, like I was just saying, like impressions might not mean you're actually having any impact. So
That could be hard to get as a business anyway, because if it's your personal account, it's not going to
yeah,
be in my company metrics as the marketing manager, is it?
yeah, exactly. I think it's how the employee advocacy is kind of set up. But yeah, I think in terms of tracking it, I always, and this sounds a bit wishy-washy, but I always think the person who's building the personal brand has a feeling about it. And I think you know whether you can be investing more time or whether you can be doing more. And I think like some weeks you'll think, oh my God, like I'm getting all these opportunities, like smashing it. And then some weeks it'll be like, okay, like that post didn't do well. That speaking opportunity didn't actually end up doing that much in terms of like meeting new people. So I think it's really kind of trying to evaluate it that way as well. And yeah, I think comments as well. So if you're, we've seen it all the time on LinkedIn at the moment, all the AI comments, like they like my worst enemy at the moment, the AI comments, like someone
I
who
saw a
will,
great trick yesterday of putting a emoji or punctuation mark at the start of your name.
and
That exposes any AI comments.
oh really?
Because they'll put, instead of putting nice post Keira, they'll put nice post emoji Keira. And we wouldn't write like that. Do you know, in like either a DM or comments on your post.
Yeah, that
I
is a
think
good
they've
way.
got to
I think
expose
that's the
these
thing.
people. Well,
Yeah,
these bots.
it is so annoying, isn't it? Like you can see in the comments, you can identify exactly which ones they are, or it's either like, yeah, nice post, or like an exact sentence from your post, like just repeated.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse. But I think when you, a good way to track your personal brand is when you get them meaningful comments, or like when you start a debate and people really want to talk about it as well. So I think they're also a nice way. But there isn't a one size fits all, and I think you've got to take everything with a bit of a pinch of salt. So I think being aware of like the impressions, being aware of the comments, being aware of how you're feeling about it is an overall good way to just be aware of how well you're doing.
It is quite it's brand, isn't it? So it is quite, as my mum would say, airy, up in the air, airy fairy. She's from a sales background, you see, so she often pokes fun at my marketing career. Um, the What advice have you got for people in these programs at a company who have perhaps been asked, we're trying to get some employee-generated content going, or they are leaders at the business and they might want to do it themselves or get their team involved? What advice have you got to help balance being authentic and having your professional image? Because I think that's the key, isn't it? It needs to be genuine. It can't just be a robot going,
Yeah.
this company's brilliant, look at how good this campaign is. It needs to be genuine. So how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I think that's the hard thing as well, because I've seen it before as well, where people have received an email and it's like the company wants them to put, we're doing this,
We've
like,
tried all sorts. We work in the in-house team here at Avidly, and people are busy, and like people don't want to. People are busy with their clients.
yeah.
We've given them swipe and deploy, copy and paste this post. We've given them 10 options. We've given them guidelines, and it is different every time. So, sorry, go on. What would you advise to help people maintain a balance?
Yeah, I think the hard thing is knowing again why you're doing it, and I would also say having that openness with employees of why you are doing it, because I think a lot of the time employees can think, oh, I'm not getting anything out of this, so why would I invest my time into doing something that I'm not probably going to get a lot from? So I think it's educating employees, educating founders even on what they will get from it and how mutually beneficial it will be as well. So I think that's the starting point. Obviously, knowing why you're doing it and communicating that to employees is really important too. The transparency in that, and I think on the professional point that you said before, I think people hate that word like authenticity now, don't they? Like it's become one of them like buzzwords, almost like how people hate the word personal branding, because people think personal branding is this very like ego,
Well, we're going
like
to stay away from in the northwest as well. It's what do you think you
yeah,
are looking after your personal brand?
yeah, exactly. People think who do you think you are for posting about all your amazing achievements? And I think it's a British thing as well, isn't it? Like, so I think it's getting through that barrier and educating people to say personal branding isn't the ego thing that they think it is. Like it's doing well for yourself, it's building you opportunities, but that isn't an ego thing. That is just like trying to progress in your career. And I don't think that should be something that should be like looked down on. It's very like I think it's an amazing thing. And then yeah, I think in terms of the authentic piece, I think sometimes employees are a bit scared of feeling like they have to share everything of their personal life. Like you definitely don't. And I think LinkedIn went through a phase where people were posting like so many personal posts, but stats have proven recently that them posts aren't like doing the best on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn don't really want the really personal post of like people posting like crying pictures on LinkedIn, or people posting about like we all saw that B2B engagement post, didn't we? Like
What's that
posts
one?
like that. I can't remember what it was now. It was like five things I learned about B2B sales from
Ah,
my proposal.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the
Which
spoofs of those, though, like you've got to be first to the punch to do a spoof of it, or like you see
yeah, I
so many.
remember I remember I did one when I went to see Harry Styles. Actually, I did what I learned about marketing. Five things I learned about marketing from going to see Harry Styles, and then put like dot dot dot, and then like you had to click see more, and it was like nothing. I didn't think about
Yeah.
marketing. And I think that's the thing. Like you don't have to be really professional all the time. Like you can have a bit of humor like that, and people want to see that. Like it's personal. You want some personality in there, but yeah, you don't have to share every single aspect of your personal life. But I do think there's a place for like professionalism and authenticity to kind of like complement each other. And it's just being open and having that two-way transparency for employees to feel like they can come to the founder, or they can come to who like the manager and speak about what they want to do with a personal brand. Because I even had it the other day. Like I was thinking the other day, like, oh, like I'm a bit, don't know what to do anymore, like with it. And I just had a one-to-one with my manager about my personal brand. And 4 months in, you think, oh, that's a bit brave, but like we both knew that it's mutually beneficial for me to decide what I want to do in my personal brand, and also the business to kind of evaluate where I can fit my personal brand in as well. So
That-
that was really helpful.
That's exactly what I've just noted down to make for us, sort of
Yeah.
a employee advocacy guidebook, sort of what's in it for you,
Yeah.
how you're helping out, and then how in turn that brings benefits for you.
Yeah. I think as
Um,
well, a lot of it is a confidence piece, no matter whether it's
yeah,
an employee or a founder or a CEO. I think some people, we get it with some of our clients, and like me as an employee as well, like I had the exact same problem. Like I think sometimes people just want a bit of reassurance and just a bit of like nurturing that they're on the right track, or like a bit of reassurance that they should do one thing and not the other thing. And I think it is that confidence piece, especially when you're just starting out as well, or picking it back up. People don't know where to start, and I think just talking through it with someone is really beneficial.
yeah, especially with things like how fast the platforms change and new features, and
Hmm.
it's like Izzy took the Instagram keys off me for a little bit when I had to run it when everyone was on holiday, because I was treating Instagram like it was when I used to do it 6 or 7 years ago for clients. So
Yeah.
yeah, a bit of advice of what's up to date. Um, Speaking of up to date, one more topic to talk about, given your expertise, is sort of, I heard a nice phrase that internet content consumption has tipped from search to social first. I just wanted to know what your thoughts and advice is for people in that sort of lens. You know, organic traffic declining, AI
Hmm.
overviews coming in on Google, Search GPT, people following people on LinkedIn or in communities. How, as a social media manager, put that hat back on, sort of,
Hmm.
how would you advise in-house teams to tackle that in 2025?
Yeah, I think it's been something that obviously people have been aware of for a while now. Um, and yeah, there's been loads of stats about how many people go to TikTok to like search something. Like I'm so bad for it recently, like just going straight to TikTok rather than like Google search. And I think
What are you
also,
searching on TikTok though? Because I think this is definitely not that we're a different generation entirely, but there's only like what 10 years difference or something. But I'd never, my wife, my brother-in-law, we'd never search on TikTok. So
oh
what are you
really?
searching? Yeah, what are you looking for?
I think personally, I depends what I'm searching. So I will actively think with my search, should I go to TikTok or should I go to Google for this? So
Right.
if it depends what I'm searching. So like recommendations for anything basically. So like restaurants, things to do, places to go, even on holiday, I'll always go to TikTok for that. But like in terms of
Oh,
like
I
searching,
thought you were going to say Google then.
no,
Right, okay.
would
Go
you
on.
not go? Would you not go to TikTok for that?
To be honest, now I'd go to search GPT.
Right. Yeah, no, I think TikTok's really good for that kind of non-bias, kind of like you really get a personal opinion of like something. Um, so I would always go to TikTok for that. I'm trying to think of like examples of Google searches that I do. I think if I'm thinking of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like anything that I've searched today.
Well, this shows it. This shows it in action, though, doesn't it? Of
Mhm.
where people are going to different platforms.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Anything that I want, like a non kind of SEO view on, if that makes sense. I will always go to TikTok because, for example, I saw this meme recently, and it was a meme that said, being a marketer is realizing that the illnesses that you search for, it isn't the illness that you might have; it's the illness with the best
Yes.
SEO. And I
Yeah,
was like, that is so true. I've never
hypocrites
been
like
able
me
to.
have ruined Google, so
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
And then, is there anything looking to the future, sort of personal brand wise? What are your sort of things that people can do to get their own personal brand and also help their team around them get their personal brand off to a good start? What can people do?
I think the main thing that I would say is to know why you're doing it. I feel like that's the main thing I
Yeah.
always direct people to say. Know why you're doing it, kind of know if you can't answer that, kind of try and answer that. So like do some like self-discovery almost. I think that's the main
What could
thing.
be the reasons? What could be some reasons? Leads, traffic to your website. What is that the kind of thing you mean?
Yeah, so it could literally be wanting more opportunities for your career. It could be wanting to do speaking opportunities. It could be wanting to have a stronger network for any kind of purpose. That could be a founder, that could be an employee. So stronger network, yeah, more leads for your business or more leads for the business you work for. And yeah, just like being more visible to people, because I think being visible will always help you out, whether you are looking for a new job or whether you're not, or whether you are wanting leads or you're not. I think putting yourself in a place where you are visible and you can lean into those different things. So like I say, your why will change all the time. So if you're in a place where you've got that solid foundation, you can lean into when you need more leads, or when you need to build out your network more, or when you need to kind of speak about your business a bit more. So I think knowing the why and then choosing a like personal branding channel to kind of go with from that. So like I said, it doesn't have to be social media. And something else that Ash did say to me when I first started was, if the first question that you're asking yourself is what should I post on social media, that isn't the question you should be asking. It should be, why am I doing this? And I think that's a really nice starting point to think of when you are thinking about your personal brand.
Very true. It's a good place. Good place to start. Thank you. I think if people are listening and want some more advice, check out Great Influence. Connect and follow Keira on LinkedIn. You'll get some good social advice. You'll get some good posts anyway. But also, if you're looking for some personal branding support, obviously you're there. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment, leave us a 5-star review, depending on which format you're listening on. And most importantly, hit the follow button to not miss future episodes. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, Keira.
Thanks so much for having me, Paul.
Hey, did you enjoy this episode? Then be sure to leave us a comment, a review, and hit that follow button. See you next episode.